Hi, Christine here from Santa Cruz Dahlias, and I thought I'd show you how I start my cutting bed from the beginning to when I nestle my tubers into the potting soil. So what we have here is, this is my cutting bed. I can get about 120 tubers in this if they're individual tubers, and so it's about 2 feet by 4 feet. It's not that big. You might be asking why there is sand here. This is a container that is a little bit too deep for making cuttings. So what I've done is I filled the base with sand, and so I leave that there every year. And then also, if you see here, I have also a, this is called a soil heating cable. And I had that in there because I thought originally that I wouldn't be doing my cuttings indoors. I might be doing them in a cooler place. And so I was taught how to put those heating cables in. And so what you do is you put down a piece of chicken wire, and then you attach the heating cables to the wire. You can see that I'm attaching it to the chicken wire. If I pull it up, you can see it better. And then this winds like this all the way through, not touching. You don't want them touching because that can be a problem. They go like this, and then they end right here, the heating cables. I haven't had to use those. And then what you have to do is you have to make sure you cover these with sand. So that's why you can't see the heating cables over here, because they're covered with sand. So if you need heating cables, that's a way to do it, but they need to be in sand as opposed to in the potting soil. So, and that's because they can get too hot in the potting soil. So you want to make sure you have sand over them if you're going to do this. So next what I do is I go to my tubs that are storing my tubers. So this is Kay's Blood Orange. And what I'll do is I'm gonna pull out a tuber, and then I take a paintbrush and I just kind of brush it off. And what I'm looking for is making sure that I can see eyes that are on this tuber. So you can see 1, 2, 3 eyes, maybe even 4 eyes on this one. So this one will be a good one to start with, because I know it has eyes. And you don't really want tubers that are kind of iffy or not with eyes taking up room in your cutting bed, because it's sort of important real estate, because I can only get so many in. So, so I'll start with doing that. I will make tags for each one, because I'm going to put these into the cutting bed and then put the tag right behind it. You always want to make sure you have the tag with it, otherwise you can't tell. So that's something I'm going to do ahead of time. I'm going to clean off the tubers I want to put in. I'm going to make my tag. And then next what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, this is high quality potting soil, and I'm going to take this and fill the bed up to probably right about here, maybe an inch from the top or ½ an inch from the top. Before you add your potting soil to your cutting bed here, it usually comes pretty dry. And so I wanted to show you what I've done. I've added water to this. I've just kept adding water and mixing it like this with my hands, or you can do it with a shovel. And what you want is you want it moist, but not dripping wet. So if you squeeze it, you're not getting any water out. I've now filled my cutting bed here with the moist potting soil, and it's all packed in here nice and tight. I like to kind of pack it down. And what I've done is I've made 3 rows already, placing my tubers into trenches, and I wanted to show you how I do that. So I'll just take my hand like this and make a trench the first time, and then I will take my tubers and I place them kind of straight up, maybe at a slight angle. And what I'm hoping for is to have the crown above the soil. So you can see here I have the crowns above the soil. The soil will pack down a little bit around it once I water them in, but I start with them like that. So if you need to grab some soil to get them at the right height, that's good. And just make sure you add your tag. Tags are super important. So I know how I do it is my tags here, and I know the ones that are in front of my tag are, let's say this is Kay's Kelty Rose. So I've got those. And so I'm putting this one in here like this, placing the tag. Again, this one is kind of a short one. So what I'm going to do is kind of fill in some dirt so it doesn't go under the soil, just like that. Make sure I get the tag again. And here I go, placing this one in here. It has kind of a long tail, so I might dig a little hole, the trench a little deeper to have that work. Again, the tag, super important about the tag. I've made a few mistakes that way before. So again, here's the last one I'm going to put in here with the tag. And then what I do is I basically make my next trench and fill this in at the same time. So now I'm going to take the potting soil and just kind of dig my next trench and pack this in over these tubers. And I might just pack some soil around these just to help them stay up a little bit like that. So I'm going to keep going like this, pack them in, make sure they're above the soil, potting soil, and just kind of tuck them in and make a trench at the same time. And that will be my trench for my next round of dahlias. So in a cutting bed like this, that's 2 by 4 feet, I can get about 120 tubers in if I really pack them in. These are not super packed in. You could be placing them about an inch apart if you wanted to, but this year I'm not packing them in as much, but you can. It's fine to pack them in kind of tight. So as you can see, I've made my next trench, and I will get my tubers and put them in. The next thing I will do, and I'm just going to show you this, once this whole thing is full, I will take water. Even though this is moist, what I want to do is make sure that the potting soil is around the tuber, because if there's too much air, they won't sprout very well. So you want to add water. I try to avoid getting the crown too wet if I can. That's ideal. And so I just add water all around it, kind of packing the tuber into the soil and making sure the soil is really nice and moist. Usually I wouldn't have it this wet, but the first time you put the tubers in, you want to get it nice and wet. So what you're hoping for after you do this is you can look here on my trench over here. I've got a little trench. So this bed here has holes in the bottom, and if I get too much water, it drips out the bottom, and I've got water here coming out. So that's a good sign. When you first put your tubers in, you really want to see that. So that's pretty much it. Now the cutting bed is full, and it's about 2 weeks old. And at 2 weeks time, I start to put down what are called sticky traps into my potting soil here. So I take a yellow sticky trap, cut it into little sections. I add it to a tag here, and then I push it into the soil. And you want to get the yellow sticky traps onto the soil, just barely onto the soil, because the fungus gnats like to crawl mostly. They fly too, but mostly they crawl and then they get stuck on the traps. And you kind of want them out of your bed, your cutting bed, because they can kind of make a mess of your little shoots. And so I just wanted to show you that now that these are 2 weeks old and have been kept at about 65 to 72 degrees with lights on, they're starting to push sprouts. So you can see the eyes are swelling here. These are eyes that are swelling, and here's a sprout on the back side. Once it gets to about, I'd say 2 inches and has 2 sets of leaves, I will probably remove that, and that will be how I make a cutting. And I have a video on that you can watch. Just go to YouTube and see that section. Also at this time, we also put in thermometers to just check what's going on. Like if you had a room that was too hot, you could see that the temperature in the soil might be too hot. But there are lots of different kinds of thermometers that work. This is one that I use for cooking. This one is called the Urban Worm, and you just put it in at about the depth that your tubers are, so you can see how hot they're getting, because you wouldn't want them to get like over 80 degrees, because you can get some rot that way. It kind of looks funny because this year I put in some full dahlia clumps. So this is a full clump that I buried in my cutting bed. I'm just sort of trying that out this year. I should get a lot of sprouts off of those. And these over here, again, are just individual tubers that are put in the ground. Anything else? Oh, we got the light here. So once I have this on a gantry crane, so I can raise it and lower it, so it's easier for me to take cuttings. But this just lowers like this, and then I lower it to about 18 inches above the potting soil there, or the plants, and I leave it on for 14 hours a day. So that's it.